Hello, I'm Jim Duran, the director of the Vanderbilt Television News Archive. I'm joined with Vaibhav Ravinutala, the data engineer for the TV News Archive. I'd like to thank CNI for allowing us to present to you all a project we're working on to migrate our database. The title of this presentation is Metadata Matters, and we will go into the details about how we modernized the TV News Archive. So to begin, I'd like to give a little background about the archive. The archive began in the late 1960s, a time of profound change and upheaval, and television was its most powerful messenger. Nightly news broadcasts brought the raw, unfiltered reality of the world directly into America's living rooms. Images of Vietnam, space exploration, and anti-war demonstrations flickered across screens nationwide, turning viewers from passive observers into engaged citizens. Americans weren't just reading or listening to their world, they were watching it unfold in real time in their living rooms. Televisions were more than just a source of entertainment, they were a critical medium for social understanding. Here in Nashville, Tennessee, at Vanderbilt University, Vandy alum and businessman Paul Simpson recognized the power of and influence of television over the American public. After finding out that the networks were not saving the content themselves, he partnered with the Vanderbilt University Library to begin recording the evening news on the three channels every night in order to make the recordings available to researchers. Long before the availability of DVRs or even videocassettes, Vanderbilt recorded the news on open reels of 1 inch thick videotape. These were quite costly, over $100 a day just in videotape. While the quality of the recordings was less than perfect, Vanderbilt was the only institution attempting to create a record of national television news. By the early 1970s, the archive had already made an impact. Both the U.S. House and Senate had requested the tapes from Vanderbilt for investigations on bias and manipulation of the public. The news networks also took notice of Vanderbilt's archive and began a lawsuit in the mid 1970s. That complaint was dropped in 1976 when Congress amended Copyright Code, permitting libraries and archives to record and provide limited access to audiovisual news. With the clearance and proof of concept complete, the TV News Archive continued its mission of recording the news, and it tried to make the collection as useful to researchers as possible, and this turned out to be quite a challenge. The archive had to develop a system for describing every single news story in a way that would be useful to researchers and not waste their time sifting through hours and hours of footage. They hired a team of abstract writers to watch every news program, time code and the start and stop of each news story and commercial break. The abstractors and indexers took great care, ensuring that people's names were spelled correctly and the locations and topics were all captured into a card catalog. All of this data was then compiled into a monthly catalog and mailed to libraries across the United States. Researchers could then call Vanderbilt and request a loan copy of a news story. Now let's take a closer look at that catalog. It has some key features like a title. This is the title of every news story that's included in a broadcast, an abstract summary of that news story, which would be broken down into the various reports from the different journalists. The time. Time is a really important element for a database like this, and these times were recorded in local Nashville time. So 5:30 is what 5:30 p.m. when this program was aired in Nashville. We also have key location information, location about the story, like this mention here of London, England. It's in some semi-structured style with within parentheses, but it's still within a text field. Same thing with people, like this person here. Their comments are captured in these square brackets with their name in all caps. And finally, the journalists. We have journalist information recorded in this right-hand column here. We take great care to make sure that we're identifying journalists, speakers, and locations throughout these news segments. All of this content, like I mentioned, was then put into a print catalog, but then in the 1990s, that catalog was transformed, digitized into a database, the first database of its kind for the Vanderbilt archive. And and here is an early website, view of the website from the 1990s. The website would give researchers the ability to search that catalog, but they would still need to call the archive and request access to the content. The archive continued in this operation, recording news, abstract writing, and database entries for many years, and it worked well. Unfortunately, though, abstract writing became very tedious and burnout became an issue where abstract writers would not be able to keep up with the daily additions of new content. And by the time I joined into 2018, years of backlog had amassed where content was waiting for abstract writing. A new solution was needed in order to create a faster way to get the content to users. And the first thing, or the ultimate decision, was to go with converting our abstract writing process into a transcript generation process. Of course, there are advantages and disadvantages to both decisions, or to both choices and ways to describe a collection, an archive collection. Abstracts are very concise. They can save the researcher time by giving them a very quick view of what is mentioned in this news story, where transcripts will have every single word, which you can still, if you'd have to read the entire transcript perhaps to get an idea, but it's going to include everything. Abstract writing, like I mentioned, is labor intensive. Takes a lot of time, and it is tedious. Um, where transcripts can be done very quickly, especially automated speech recognition transcripts like we used, that can be done programmatically. Abstracts are also not great for text and data mining. We had lots of researchers, the growing number of researchers that wanted to interact with the collection computationally. And what they found was the abstracts just lacked the language, the natural language that's needed for doing text analysis, where transcripts, of course, will obviously would be very beneficial to that type of research. Unfortunately, since we don't have people watching every single news story and making sure that the names are spelled correctly, we will disadvantage to using transcripts is spelling mistakes. Especially with automation, we did have to accept a certain level of spelling mistakes within our collection, and it's just something that we're going to address going forward and try to mitigate. After comparing our options, we decided to go with transcripts and generating transcripts, and we're doing that. We were able to reduce those backlogs, actually eliminate some of the backlogs, and create a collection that is more accessible to our researchers. Beyond transcripts, another goal we had was to standardize our metadata. As we've seen, the archive created its metadata standard year by year, identifying what could be done with the stories and just creating a scheme in-house. We recognized the power of using a metadata standard, and by the 2018, 2019, the American Archive of Public Broadcasting had published its PB Core metadata standard, which was a great fit for us because it was designed both for audiovisual collections and also news in mind. So our new metadata standard, our new metadata structure is relational, where our old system was a flat database structure. And we have three primary tables: broadcasts, instances, and segments. Broadcasts is the top level, where it is a table that describes and defines the streams of television that are broadcast on different channels. So you have things like the broadcast title, start and stop time of that of that broadcast, the date, etc. A broadcast is then recorded on an instance. So when those 1-inch tapes were recorded, those tapes would be an instance of the broadcast. When the tape was digitized, the digital copy is a broadcast. If we create or is an instance. And when we create an access copy of that instance, we have a new instance that's all could be tracked in this instance table. This is a new field for us or new section for us. We did not have this item level description of objects in our collection before this structure. And so that we're really looking forward to being able to have all this data captured in a standard way. The final table is segments. So a segment is a piece of the broadcast. It's with the distinctive characteristics like a news story or a commercial break. It can get a title, a summary, and a start and stop time. So a broadcast can have many segments and a broadcast can have many instances. This metadata standard is what was defined when we rebuilt our database structure, our database schema, and we also designed the new schema to accommodate transcripts, which we now had. And so with that plan and with the transcripts, we were able to perform our massive migration, which Vaibhav will now expand on.
Hi, welcome. I'm Vaibhav, the data engineer at Vanderbilt TV News Archive. I'm here to share how our team respectfully modernized the archive so it's fast, automated, and genuinely ready for contemporary AI, ML, and large scale textual and multimodal research. Where we were until early 2025. It all started when we moved our legacy stack from on-prem to AWS. The old Perl site and the single flat table were never broken. They did exactly what they were built to do in 2000s, and they did brilliantly for 2 decades. But when researchers started asking questions like, can I download the entire dataset for the text and data mining or for my AI/ML project? Or can I build a real-time dashboard to follow a specific trend? The honest answer had become, not really. That's where we had to modernize. The core question we answered, is this historical collection truly ready for contemporary AI, ML, and large-scale textual research, or is it just for traditional keyword lookup? Our project was built around giving a confident yes, the first part. This wasn't about replacing something outdated just because it was old. It was about making sure one of the world's most important television news collection stays usable for next generation of scholarship. What we did earlier, when we moved our legacy stack from on-prem to AWS with lift and shift, we couldn't do any native AWS optimizations. The search got atrociously slow, and adding new fields or scaling for large queries was not practically feasible. So in the current project, we used AWS DMS to migrate the legacy data that was clean while the old system was still alive. We switched from predictable sequential IDs to more secure nano IDs so the permanent links can't be guessed or scraped. We did the heavy data cleaning in Databricks, which handled the scale far better than anything else we had seen before. For ongoing entry of new data into the database, we use automated ETL pipelines that are enhanced with AI. In parallel, we rewrote the site and normalized the schema. We rebuilt the entire stack with security, data governance, and usability in mind. Catalogers, that is TVNS staff, used to spend significant time creating the program descriptions, inputting the data into the database manually. Today, new broadcast appears searchable with less latency than before, and staff can focus on nuanced curatorial work and give better research support. We finally fixed the problem of duplicates across millions of records and identified the gaps in the collection and are in the process of updating the gap, which is a lot easier now with the new stack. We replaced our homegrown metadata standard, which evolved over 58 years. It's fragmented, and to make it cohesive, we followed standards like PB Core and IBTC news topics. So the collection now speaks the same language as other major archives. Capabilities researchers have today. Researchers get sub-second searches, permanent links they can cite with confidence, proper APIs, Bulk exports ready for machine learning, a site that works beautifully on phones. Because the foundation is solid, we can serve patrons and researchers far better and keep doing so for the future needs. Near future roadmap. Currently, we use third party service for transcription, but for time coding, that is, splitting the transcript into segments and characterizing them is done manually each day by staff. The process is tedious and time consuming. We intend to automate this process also. Work has begun and is ongoing as a Weasel project. At some point, we intend to open up the access to the dataset via authenticated API. Also awaiting the clearance, we intend to list our dataset in major public data marketplaces as a data product to increase visibility and usability of the dataset. We have evolved our Vanderbilt TV News archive from our beloved 2000 system into a clean, relational, standards-based, largely automated research platform that honors its past while fully being ready for not only the questions the scholars are asking today, but also tomorrow. Thank you.
the, by far the majority of the American people get their information about local and national and world affairs from television. The television is the contemporary medium of mass communications, and that since this is the source of most people's information, that future historians are going to need to know what was said on television.